Now, I might not be a Christian, but it's impossible for me to deny that Stranger Things is a remarkably Christian story. From the dichotomy of heaven and hell, our world, the upside down, to a character literally experiencing a fall from our world to the upside down, to the writers infusing these quasi-crucifixion-like executions into the story, how can you deny that this story is not in some way Christian? And I do think it's rather interesting just how deeply this story resonates with us in this culture. Jordan Peterson obviously talks about the importance of stories and how they supply this kind of map for meaning, hence the title of his book. And so to that point, I'm rather surprised that Jordan Peterson has not talked about Stranger Things as an example to support his thesis. I've already talked about the heaven-hell dichotomy, and I've talked about Vecna, and you'll notice this kind of congruence everywhere. You'll also notice that when Vecna is executing people in the Upside Down, they are in hell because they are guilty about something, and they have to atone for their sins. But I don't hear Stranger Things referred to in this way, and I don't hear it analyzed as a story that resonates with us to such a degree, specifically because it references all of this Christian symbology. You'll notice in this scene in the final episode when Max is getting crucified, she's nailed up against the plane, her arms are out like this, and her legs are tied. Very closely resembles a crucifixion. They even add in the element of resurrection as the character rises up, and all their limbs crack. Pretty gruesome stuff. But notice this shot right here while she's being nailed up against the plane. You see there are crosses in the foreground. That is there by design. The writers understand what they're doing when they put this imagery there. The writers also understand what they're doing when they create two characters that go by numbers 1 and 11, which happens to correlate with the 12 apostles. 11 apostles were faithful. 1 apostle betrayed Jesus. The 1 being Judas and the 11 being 11. I mean, they all had names, but what better way to represent them than through a character who's literally named 11? And as it turns out, 1 has a name as well. Peter, a name to a pretty important apostle, the one who is given the keys to heaven. What's very interesting is that in Stranger Things, 1 is 11's guide. 1 is in part the reason why 11 is able to retrieve her powers. The keys to the kingdom, one might say. These are only some of many examples that I'm sure exist within Stranger Things that relate to this Christian symbology. This is the most popular Netflix show within a culture whose most popular religion is Christianity. And so even if you don't identify with Christianity, even if you don't consider yourself a Christian, if you're having an emotional experience when you watch this show, if it's somehow pulling on those heartstrings in ways that you don't understand, if you're potentially even moved to tears at certain scenes in this show, realize that that emotional mechanism that's going on inside your brain is not in your control, and it might be far deeper than what it seems on the surface. The fact that this show and the imagery that it contains has such an emotional impact on our culture really says something. Even people like myself, who are not Christian, still resonate deeply with the show. I think this is what Jordan Peterson is trying to say when he tells atheists, for instance, you think that you don't believe in God, but you're Judeo-Christian to the core. As someone who was a pretty staunch atheist a few years ago, I've understood the meaning of that statement more and more as time has gone by. And while I used to be offended when that claim was levied against me, I know where it's coming from. We as humans have emotional responses to stories that we don't fully understand. The stories might be affecting us deeper than just on the individual level. And I think that's something to be appreciated.